You know?
That's very exciting.
I'll be there on your commute tomorrow morning.
I once had somebody come up to me on the subway and hold their phone up to me awkwardly,
With your
and I
own
got
voice?
scared. And it was my little avatar there, and they were listening to me, and I was like, "Don't tell me what part you're at." Anyway, congratulations, Ben. Thank you. And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. Nice to have you here. So a lot of news has broken tonight. The judge overseeing the case of Trump National Security Advisor Mike Flynn, who pled guilty on Friday to lying to the FBI, and thereupon apparently became a cooperating witness with the Robert Mueller investigation. The judge in the Mike Flynn case has tonight recused himself from that case. Now, we don't know the basis of the judge's recusal. We do know the consequences of it. The way these things work, there's now been essentially a random lottery, a random drawing among the other judges in that district to figure out who will pick up the case, who will replace Judge Rudolph Contreras. The result of that random drawing is that instead of him being the judge, the new judge in the Flynn case is this man, a judge named Emmett Sullivan. But this recusal news, it is a surprise. And there are two basic things we're waiting to figure out about it now that we've got this news. Number one is the impact of this decision. Number two is the explanation for why it happened. Now, in terms of the impact, the judge in the Flynn case thus far, as far as we can tell at least, hasn't been handling very complex matters, right? Flynn was charged with lying to the FBI. He pled guilty to that charge. The judge accepted his plea. And the sentencing, which the judge would preside over in this case, that sentencing has been delayed for 3 months, while Flynn apparently gets his time to cooperate with Mueller's investigators. So the implications of the judge in the Flynn case being recused and replaced tonight could be very minor. Could end up being important. We don't yet know. So that's one, the implication of this change in the Flynn case. In terms of the explanation for why it happened, it's possible that this was just something logistical. It was, you know, a scheduling matter with another one of the judge's cases or something. It's also possible that the judge was discovered to have a previously unknown conflict of interest in the Mike Flynn case. Now, if that's the case, we may or may not get some explanation from the judge about that conflict. In legal terms, these kinds of things happen all the time, and they're very rarely seen as the end of the world. In this particular case, though, in the Mike Flynn case, in this particular political climate around this Russia investigation, I do think it's worth recognizing that this may be treated differently than a normal case. Republicans are now starting to respond to the threat that the Mueller investigation appears to pose to the Trump presidency by increasingly accusing people involved in the investigation, accusing people involved in these multiple prosecutions. Republicans are now accusing them of having political bias, some sort of political bias that ought to disqualify them all from working on this matter. Republicans are increasingly and more aggressively every day accusing the law enforcement people involved in this investigation with having terrible conflicts of interest that have somehow corrupted the whole Russia investigation. So, again, tonight we have this bare bones news that Judge Rudolph Contreras is recused from the Flynn matter. And we know he'll be replaced by Judge Emmett Sullivan. We don't yet know why that happened. But if it turns out that the judge ends up disclosing some sort of conflict, if this ends up being something more than just a logistical recusal, I think it's worth considering that this may end up being yet another potential flashpoint for Republicans' efforts to problematize the Mueller investigation and the multiple prosecutions it has already led to. So again, that news just breaking this evening. Politico.com first to report that the judge in the Mike Flynn case is recused. Tonight, we expected that the major news out of Congress would be that the government has narrowly averted shutting down tomorrow. That is the case. They waited until the last day before the government was due to run out of money and shut down. But then they went ahead today and passed a 2-week spending bill to avert the shutdown, which means we'll have another come to the brink of a shutdown bout of agita right before Christmas, which is nice of them. Aside from this having been potential shutdown eve, the real drama out of Washington today was just this whiplash series of stories on ethics. It started mid